Can we pray one more time? Too much prayer is a good thing, right? All right. Lord, again, we ask for your Spirit as we talk and worship together. And as always, we don't want to know anything that doesn't come from you. We ask that in Jesus' name. Amen. I hope you were listening to that song. God uses anything to tell you, I love you. I probably just misquoted it. I don't know. I don't know if you guys chose that intentionally or not, but it's sort of the entire point of my sermon, so I guess we can go now. And it's all done. We'll see you downstairs. How many of you are in love? Raise your hand. All right. 2 or 3 of you. Okay. How many of you are married? Okay, I hope the pastor's paying attention because a lot of people raise their hands for being married, but only like 3 people raise their hand about being in love. So I don't know. I don't know what the state of the relationships are here, but I'm just passing that along to you. Oh yeah, it was a trick, right? Now think back to when you and your significant whatever got together. Now what was it that drew you together? Now, most of the time, if we're being really honest, when we first saw that special somebody, it had nothing more to do with the fact that we thought that they were really incredibly hot. Right? Be honest. Because you didn't know anything about them. You couldn't know what was inside of them. You hadn't got that far yet. All you saw is they're really attractive. I think I want to be around this attractive person more. More importantly, I want this attractive person to be around me because that'll make me look good. And now you know why I'm married. But the thing is, think about the different relationships you may have had before that maybe failed. Now, you met someone, they were attractive, you were attracted to them, you spent some time together, maybe you dated for a while. And then at some point, you realized that you didn't like the person that was inside, or you didn't get along with the person that was inside. The more you got to know them, the more you realized that maybe this person wasn't for you. Conversely, those of you who are successfully married, you realize that the person inside was the person for you. See, it wasn't love until you figured out who was inside, right? The exterior, what you saw, was simply that, an exterior. Good, bad, or otherwise. It didn't have any reflection on the person within. You had to take time, get to know them, learn about who they were, spend lots of money on dates and ice cream, and then you figured it out. And then 5, 10, 15, 30 years later, you're still figuring it out. And that is the truth. But until we can't get past the appearance, we can never get to something else. We can never find the thing that's truly important about this person. There's a text in Matthew chapter 23. For those of you with Bibles or you like to keep score. Matthew 23, verse 25 and 26. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you clean the outside of the cup and the plate, but inside they are full of greed and self-indulgence. You blind Pharisee, first clean the inside of the cup and the plate, that the outside also may be clean. I don't know, it seems like Jesus is trying to tell us something important here. It has to do with doing your dishes, right? That's what this is about. Do you guys do your dishes? Do you just wash the back side of the plate and then leave all the dried, nasty stuff on there and put it away? No, you wouldn't do that because it's gross, right? That's disgusting. I've actually eaten at people's houses where they actually did dishes like that, and you have to pretend as a pastor that you don't care and that you didn't notice and that you're trying not to throw up in your mouth every time you... Yeah. It's not good. See, Jesus doesn't care about the external appearance. He cared about what was inside. And more importantly, he wanted the leaders of the church at the time, the Jewish community, to realize that they need to be taking care of the inside of things. You know, they can make themselves look as pretty as they want to with their robes and their thing with the stuff and the tassels and the other things and all the other stuff that they would do. But if the heart wasn't clean, the rest of it didn't matter. He wanted us to clean ourselves there. He wanted an internal focus. But see, there's another verse that says the same thing. It's in Luke chapter 11. But it says it just a little bit differently. Go to Luke chapter 11. And go to verse 39. And the Lord said to him, "Now you Pharisees clean the outside of the cup and the dish, but inside you are full of greed and wickedness. You fools." That's something you never want God to call you, right? You fools, right? "Did not he who made the outside make the inside also?" And then he says this in verse 41, "But give as alms those things that are within, and behold, everything is clean for you." Now that's a weird statement. Take care of what's in, and then everything will be clean for you. I don't like to beat people with Greek or anything like that, but I'm going to do a little bit right here. The word there for clean is katharos. Any Greek scholars in the audience here? Good, because you can't prove that I don't know what I'm talking about. Good, that's great. The word there is katharos, and this is the Greek equivalent for the Hebrew concept of clean and unclean. If it was clean, it was called katharos. If it was unclean, it was called agkatharos. So, and this is to be distinct from common and uncommon. Those are two different concepts. And so when we talk about in the Old Testament of clean and unclean, this is the transitionary concept in the New Testament. And so Jesus makes this weird statement. If you take care of what's inside, then everything outside is clean for you. Well, that's sort of weird. And we could talk about the implications and ramifications of that all day long, and we could come to all kinds of different conclusions about it. But the one that matters for this discussion is that when we become clean inside, anything else that we may do and be a part of will take care of itself. You want to improve who you are? Improve who you are inside. You want to be a better person? Take care of who you are inside. You know, wearing a nicer suit and putting on the nicer tie and, getting, having the Adventist haircut. Or I don't know, is there an Adventist haircut? I long stopped caring. Turns out it didn't help me at all. Whatever that may be doesn't make you anything else. But when you change something inside, it changes everything else you do. It's cause and effect. You throw a rock in the water, and the water ripples. If you want the water to ripple, you can't just stare at the water. Although if you could make it ripple by staring at it, that would be pretty cool. But unfortunately, we get so concerned with the reverse of this. What's on the outside. We want to care about what people look like, what they smell like. Come on, we've all been next to that person. Even in church. You sit down and then and you realize it's the person kitty corner over there, and you suddenly stop asking what it is, and you're just like, oh. But we care about these things. What they look like, what they smell like, what they sound like. This matters. What they taste like. Not what they taste like. I hope you're not tasting each other. That's disgusting. But because of this, we preclude what is inside. What we see must be what is within. What we hear must be what is within. And unfortunately, we have it all backwards. Because the outside is simply a barrier. If we don't like what we see, we never bother to look any farther. Think about your relationships like we started. You met that girl of your dreams. Why did you pick her? To get to know better. There was lots of other girls around. Why did you like her? So you could have talked to anybody else on that college campus or that high school courtyard or wherever it was you met that special someone, but you chose the one whose exterior you liked, not the ones whose interior you liked. That didn't come till later. I'm guilty of that. I'm not trying to point fingers because, listen, my wife is smoking hot. All right? I'm just going to leave it there because you understand what I mean. Let me tell you I brought this in here. This is a guitar. I'm sure you all know what a guitar is. This guitar is, I don't know, I don't want to say old because I know when it was made, and I was made before this guitar. But it's been around for a while. And I knew a guy in my previous church district. He ran a burger bar restaurant in Savannah. He was a member of my church. And he had this hanging on the wall. And he was a guitarist. And I'm sort of a guitarist. And he had this on the wall, a bunch with other guitars, because it was sort of the theme of his restaurant. And but he's a left-handed guitarist, so he needs guitars that are strung this way. And I need guitars that are strung this way. If you don't play guitar, then that means nothing to you. If you do play guitar, then you'll understand why that matters. And so I'm over at his place. I'm having lunch in his restaurant one day, just talking to him. And he says, "Hey, I want you to have this guitar." And he pulls it off the wall. And I said, "Dude, I can't take your guitar." Because I know he was trying to sell the stuff that he had on his wall. I mean, this guy doesn't have money. He's losing money on his restaurant. He's losing money all around. Savannah's a very poor town. If you live there, it's probably because you're poor. I mean, that's just the basic facts of this town. And I knew that he couldn't afford to give me a guitar. I said, "Sell it. Just take the guitar and sell it. You don't need to give me something." He said, "No, I want you to have it." And so I said, "Fine." And I asked him how much he was selling it for, and so I forced him to take money for the guitar. And so I took it, and you can see it. It looked just like this. It's red, and it's red. And, it was way out of tune. I took it home, and I tried to tune it up, and I could not get it to stay in tune, and I couldn't figure out why. And then I realized that the neck on it was broken right here. And it turns out guitars and people are a lot alike. You break our necks, and they do not work. Not at all. And so I kept trying to tune it, but I realized every time I do it, I would try to hold a chord, and the entire neck would move like this, and it would change the entire key of what I was trying to play in. And so I finally called somebody up, and I was like, "Listen, I have this guitar. Can you do something about it? Can you help me tune it up? Can you fix what problems are there?" And the guy said, "Yeah, bring it in, and I'll take a look at it, and maybe I can do something for you." And so I took the guitar in, and I handed it to him, and I had barely gotten it across the counter before he's asking me, "Where did you find this guitar?" And I said, "Some guy had it in his closet for a long time. I mean, he had it in his closet for years before he put it in his restaurant." And he said he had it sitting in his restaurant after he decided it would look good as a decoration, and he gave it to me. I said, "It doesn't really play well at all. I couldn't get the electronics to work on it. It was just all corroded and staticky." He said, "Man, I haven't fixed this yet, but in the condition it's in right now, I could probably sell it for $400 or $500. And that's broken." And I was like, "Why?" "Because it's chipped, man. The coating's coming off of it. It doesn't play good." He's like, back in the late 80s, early 90s, Martin Guitar Company. How many of you have heard of Martin Guitar Company? Any guitar players? I saw at least one earlier today. So if you say no, then I know somebody's not telling the truth. And we are in church, and the pastor's sitting right there. There's no less than 3 pastors in the room. If you start lying in church, I promise you, this is not going to end well for you. And so back in the late 80s, early 90s, Martin Guitar Company decided they wanted to build a line of electric guitars. Now, if you know about Martins, they build acoustic guitars, okay? They are known worldwide for their high-quality acoustic guitars that they can sell as high as $5,000, $6,000, $10,000 for a guitar. That's a lot of money for a guitar. But they decided to build an electric guitar, and you know what happened when they did? Nobody bought them. Do you know why? Because guitarists are snobs. Now, I'm a guitarist, and let me explain what I mean by this, all right? I don't mean snob in a bad way. I have a friend who's a chocolate aficionado, and she refers to herself as a chocolate snob. She's very particular about the kind of chocolate she eats. She will not eat certain kind of chocolates, and if you try to feed it to her, she will refuse. Now, she's not a bad person. She just is really picky about chocolate. Guitarists are the same way. And so there's a lot of tradition around Martin guitars. If you buy a Martin, you buy an acoustic. You do not buy anything else. And so when they made this, no one would buy it, not because it was a bad guitar, but because it was an electric guitar, and you just don't buy Martin electric guitars. You just don't do it. And so very few people did. Brand new, they cost between $250, $350 brand new back in 1989. And this is a Martin Stinger ST2, which means absolutely nothing to you and me. And so this guy saw this and he said, you know, nobody bought them, and so the ones that are out there are pretty rare. And so he took it in and he charged me $50 to fix the neck, put new strings on it, tune it up, clean the electrics on it, and put some new parts inside of it. And now it plays fantastic. It doesn't look any better, but it plays fantastic. I would show you, but I'm not very good. And so that doesn't work very well for you. And you can't hear it because it's not plugged in. So that's also important. It's an electric guitar. And so he plugged it in there and he played it for me, and this guy's really good at it. And, you know, it turns out the quality of the tool is not nearly as important as the one using the tool. There might be a spiritual principle there, I don't know. And so he said, this is a good guitar. This is better than a great starter guitar. Go out and learn on this. And he even gave me some extra stuff for it. He's like, hey, I got a whammy bar for you. You can put it on there and I'll just give it to you. I got home and found out it wasn't the right size, but it still works. And so I have this guitar. And if I don't tell anybody about its history, they think it's a cool guitar, you know, because it's shiny and it's red. And it passes the 50-50 rule. Do you know what the 50-50 rule is? This is a term that they use at car shows. You know, some people spend a lot of time and money on their cars when they restore them, and you can get up close and all the detail is right there. I mean, you can tell that they spend hours polishing this tiny piece of chrome. You know, and they went and they found the original nut that goes on this thing on the side, right? But then there's other cars that only look good from 50 feet away if you're driving by at 50 miles an hour. And this guitar is sort of like that. From back there, it looks great. If you get up here, not so much. Not at all, because there's a big crack and the thing is bent and it's chipped and it's all faded in the middle here. But if I hadn't known that, if he hadn't told me that, would I have spent the money to make this better? Would I have known what I had if I hadn't found out more about it? Would I have known that I had something special that someone just gave to me? Because it plays really well. With somebody who knows what they're doing, it plays really well. See, we make this mistake all the time with people. We do this every day. We are ingrained to only see what is outside. It's just part of what we do. I mean, how many of you, when you leave the house, get to leave the house and walk out the door without getting your attire inspected by your spouse? Come on, be honest. We're not lying in church. We've talked about this already. In my house, we call this the Dork Check, because my wife doesn't want me leaving the house while I look like a dork. Mostly because she doesn't want to be seen with me if I look like a dork. Because my wife is pretty, and I require more effort to be pretty. Actually, that's probably an understatement. So to keep from embarrassing each other, we get dressed and we go out and we look at the other. Does this look okay? Am I acceptable? Am I presentable? Are we going to be able to handle this if we go out in public? Because I don't want her hiding behind trees and light poles when somebody walks by. I don't want her to be embarrassed. And so if it looks okay, she'll be like, yes, it's good. I get the thumbs up. And if it looks not okay, then I get this sort of go change. You know? And there's sort of that sigh beforehand. Go change. And so I hang my head and go change my clothes. See, looks matter to us. See, at some point, all of you have gone through that process with somebody. Hey, does this look okay? Does this tie match the jacket and match the socks? How about the socks? We can't get past appearances. And I use the word appearance broadly because sometimes appearances are not just about looks. Sometimes appearances are about the way things seem. In 1 Peter chapter 3, Peter talks about looks. And this is a very famous verse, and we have used this verse many, many times successfully to beat people to death with. And it says this: "Do not let your adorning be external, the braiding of hair and the putting on of gold jewelry or the clothing you wear, but let your adorning be the hidden person of the heart with the imperishable beauty of gentle and quiet spirit, which in God's sight is very precious." Now, most of your translations read that a little bit differently. Most of you, it said, let your beauty come from within and not from the outward adorning. Is that what most of your translations said? And we have this habit of taking this to mean that Peter didn't want us to take time in our appearance. That's not actually what it says. It says, don't let your beauty come from without. He wants you to be beautiful inside. He's not saying don't look good. He's saying looking good is not what makes you beautiful. Do you understand the difference? Looking good is not what makes you beautiful. Unfortunately, we often use this to get after people who took more time to look good than we did. Oh, this person came to church and they look better than me. I better quote 1 Peter 3, verse 3, because they braided their hair. And we can't have that. Jesus won't like you if you braid your hair. Now, maybe you've never done that. I have heard people do this. I have seen people do it. But we missed the point. We missed the point of all of this. See, maybe back in school, I don't know what kind of person you were. I wasn't always a good guy. I think the jury's still out on whether I'm a good guy now, honestly. But back in school, maybe we made fun of people. Maybe we couldn't look past the awkward, smelly, fat girl who sat in the corner in class. Does that sound harsh? It is harsh, isn't it? Maybe we couldn't look past the fact that she was big and smelly. And because we couldn't, she never went on to cure cancer because she had the right idea. But we didn't treat her good. We didn't treat her in a way that allowed her to fulfill that potential. And so now we all die from a horrible disease. Maybe that was true. You can't prove otherwise. Maybe we couldn't look past the handsome exterior of the friendly guy who helped out with all the children's classes. And because we couldn't look past how good-looking he was, no one stopped him from abusing children. See, it works both ways. And maybe we couldn't look past the plain exterior of the guy who worked in wood shop and grew up on the bad part of town. I'm glad he was strong enough to die for me anyway. How we, without wisdom, judge people changes lives unwisely. How we without wisdom judge people changes lives unwisely. So the solution is simple. Don't. Just don't. As was mentioned, one of the couple, 3 or 4 dozen hats that I wear is young adult ministry. And as I look around, I see some young adults here. Fantastic. Yay for you. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but the young adult age group is the fastest dying group in churches everywhere. Adventist or otherwise, we are no better than any other group when it comes to this. We are hemorrhaging young people. It's not a good situation. And we can't seem to figure out why. Or at least some people can't figure out why. Because we have lots of churches that want to keep our young people. And I've had conversations with them. We gotta figure out how to keep them here so we can teach them and get them to do the things that we want them to do. And I've actually heard them say it to me that way. I mean, did they think that through when they made that statement? Why do we want them to stay? Do we care about who they are? Do we care about what they represent? Do we care about them, or do we like the idea of them? I like the fact that my church looks young when I have young people in the pews. Now, if they will just stay there and be quiet. I pastored a church in Moline, Illinois. I had 3 churches over there, and so it was all during the same time period. And we finally got kids coming back to church there. It took about 3 or 4 years, but we finally had kids. We went from having no kids to 2 rows full of kids at Children's Story. It was fantastic. And I had a lady come up to me finally, and she was like, "Pastor, it is so great that we have all these young people here. Now, how do we get them to be quiet?" Now, that's funny, right? Because I sort of laughed when she said it. But you can't have it both ways. You can't have kids and not have a little bit extra noise. Kids make noise. That's what they excel at. It's what you excelled at when you were a kid. Some of us excel at it still. But that's not the point. We want them, and we want to use them as long as they do what we want them to do. But that's not how it works. It turns out young adults, which, by the way, I'd like to qualify this age group. We're officially, because we've decided, we're saying it's between 19 and 35-ish, which is a really broad age group, and we'd probably narrow that down more, except we just don't have enough money and people. So we had to make a big group. So youth is below, young adults above, and after 35, we just call you old. I'm over 35, so I'm in that group. I don't even qualify for the group I'm supposed to minister to anymore. And so within that group is a lot of people. You have the college-age kids. You have the young singles, the young marrieds, and then the young parents. And most of that group are young professionals. They're successful people in the world, but we're not willing to use them in the church. We're afraid of the ideas they might have. They might want to do something that I'm uncomfortable with. I mean, they already dress weird. You guys like my shoes? I only mention it because, one, they're awesome. Okay? Just so we're clear. Secondly, I don't wear them all the time because it actually makes people at my church uncomfortable. And so I try not to rub it in. But when I'm wearing the young adult hat, I wear them every time because I don't care if I make you uncomfortable. I don't have to stay here. I get to go home when I'm done. And then it's his problem and his problem. So I preached at another church, and And after time went by, I spoke with the pastor there, and I was like, and he was talking with me, and I forget how it all came up, but I asked him, I was like, well, I was glad that I was able to come and talk there, and I hope that, everything went well and we didn't cause too many problems. He's like, no, that when people come and complain, I just explain what the whole point was. And I was like, you're getting people coming and complaining? This seems important. Let's talk about that. And he's like, yeah, I just tell them that, your shoes was part of the point of the sermon. I was like, well, it's true. And so all these people came to him and they were complaining because I was wearing these shoes. The whole point of the sermon was getting past what the exterior looks like to see what's beneath, so I wore them on purpose. But they never got the point because they couldn't look past the shoes, and they never heard the sermon. I walked up on the platform, and they immediately tuned out. They spent the entire time going, and I didn't notice that, because apparently they were doing it inside, and then just looking around to see if anybody else was looking. You see, young adults do things differently. The same way you did things differently when you were young adults. Did you know that in the corporate world, when you graduate college in whatever area that you graduate from, and corporations hire you, if you go that route, they take you, and no, they do not make you president of the company. I'm sorry. You do not make them a lot of money coming out of college. Well, some of you will, but I didn't. Maybe I just wasn't that good. I hadn't considered that. Thanks. Now you're just ruining my day. But they take you, and if you were good at what you were doing in school, they take you, and while you're not in charge, they put you in a position where your ideas directly influence the future of the company. Because they are the ones with the fresh ideas. They are the ones who are seeing the world differently. They are the ones living in the current culture and understanding it, not us old people. It's the young ones. So the corporations that are succeeding are taking these people, putting them there and say, all right, tell us what we should do next. And these companies are growing. And you know what churches do? We do the exact opposite. We take them, we're glad you're here. Now please don't talk, ever. Don't come to board meeting. We don't want you part of our planning groups, but we want you to help, so here's what you need to do. Here's the song you need to sing, the verse you need to read. Let me see the message you're going to talk about before you say it. That way you don't say anything we don't like. And we wonder why we can't hold on to young people. Because if you were treated that way, would you stay? I'm told you guys are having a church retreat in the near future. I'm also told that I'm supposed to be there. So I'm planning to. And this is something that we're going to talk about throughout the weekend. How or why or what are some of the things that we can do as a church to embrace our younger people? What are we going to do to help them in the church, but more importantly, allow them to help us? There's a church down in, and I don't remember if you were there. You may have been there. At our last pastor's retreat, we had Johnny Wong from Australia came. Yeah, I think you guys were both there. And he came and talked about the church plants that they did down in Australia. I don't know what his theology is like. I have no idea. I might like it. I might hate it. I might not care. What I do know is that they planted 5 churches. And these churches have grown, and collectively they are the top 5 churches in Australia in the Adventist church. In amounts of tithe, in amounts of participation, in amounts of ministry, they are a huge force there. And he threw out this one statistic that sort of went unnoticed, but it's very important. These churches, these 5 and up top churches in the Adventist church in Australia, all of them are run by people the ages of 19 to 22. 19 to 22. They are succeeding not in spite of young leadership, but because of young leadership. Do you want your church to grow? Start letting the younger people tell you what to do. Oh, that doesn't sound good. Oh, you don't like that. That's uncomfortable. Because I remember I told my dad what to do once, and then I lost my memory for 2 weeks. Yeah, it doesn't go well. To this day, I have about 10 seconds worth of short-term memory. Listen, our world changes like this. Every day, it's a new world. And we cannot keep up if we do not listen to the people who are living that. If we do not embrace the people who are living that. Because it's not me, it's them. At some point, we get stuck. And we want to help, we want to be relevant, but we don't know how anymore. You know, there's that saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. It's not true, you can. We just don't want to. That's the sad truth. It's not that we can't adapt, we don't want to adapt. Because we equate adaptation with compromise. It's not about compromise. It's about knowing what you stand for and recognizing that I don't know everything. Because I don't. I'm a pastor, and I would like to admit that I don't know everything. In fact, the biggest thing that I've learned, the more that I study and pray, is that I know nothing. It's the one truth that I can cling to constantly. God knows everything, I know nothing. And as long as I let that guide me, I can step out of the way and let somebody else do what needs to be done. If I can't admit that, then I will never step out of the way, and I'll just be a barrier. As a local church, if we want to get our young people to be actively involved, we have to realize that they are not the barrier. We are. I'm the barrier. I'm the one who stands in the way from them being active, being a part of what's going on in the local church. And I have to accept that. Because if I don't, they're just going to run away. They're going to go somewhere else. And maybe they'll go someplace better, or maybe it'll be much, much worse. So I'll leave you with that cheery thought, because I like to end on a high note. But think about this as we go into the retreat. Think of things that you've been a part of, that you've seen, that maybe you've done, or maybe that you've seen done, and how we can change the culture of the local church. Because programs will not fix the problem. They merely mask the problem. The problem is always personal attitude. And unless our attitude changes, and I say this in complete ignorance of your church, I don't know what it's like here. I see a lot of young people, so maybe you're a raving success. I have no idea. But if we want it to be better, we have to recognize that it is our attitude that must change before anything else can get better. So let's pray for that. Let's bow our heads. Father, as we leave here today, we are grateful for your patience with us. It's taken us a long time as people, as individuals, to become the people who we are. And we haven't arrived yet. And so we ask for your patience as we continue to grow and become more what you want us to be. And we ask for patience with each other, that you will alter our individual attitudes, that we can accept people, work with them, unite with them, come to a common front so that we can move your mission in this world forward, so that we can be a place where lives can be saved instead of ruined. And we ask this in the name of Jesus. Amen.